Evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out tonight, our rescheduled evening. I see we lost quite a few, but I think that's what happens. I'd also like to welcome our live stream audience from all over the world. We're really happy to have you join us tonight. This is In Love with Life, which is a 6-week class that we're holding here in our Boulder Center. And it's really about awakening the heart, about bodhichitta. And we're exploring bodhichitta from several different perspectives over these 6 weeks. And you're just going to jump right in with us. This is our second session. This is turning out to be a bodhichitta spring, more or less. Reggie's been teaching bodhichitta on the live stream for the past couple of weeks, and I think even before Datin he was doing that. And he's going to be recording a series on bodhichitta later in the spring. And we're also doing a program at Blazing Mountain in late March, which is taking the teachings we're going to be doing here another step. And then even closer than that, and I think many of you know this, Reggie and I are teaching a weekend at Naropa about the intimate relationship and about the tantric sort of consort relationship. And to be honest, that's the first time that Reggie and I will ever teach together. We have not done that before, and it's a little bit daunting. Actually, it's pretty terrifying. That's the word that's resonating right now. But it will be interesting. So no doubt I'll share some of that with you as our classes the night after we finish that. So tonight, as I've said in the note that I sent you all, we're going to work on Maitri, which is unconditional friendliness to ourselves first, and complete acceptance of who we are, as we are. And we have to do a little bit of work to get there. I talked last week about, in a pretty straightforward way, about the ground, the path, and the fruition of the awakening heart. And tonight I want to look a little bit in a different way at the path, the actual path, and put all the things we go through in terms of awakening our heart or learning to awaken our heart into a bigger framework. Because you might get to a point in doing this bodhichitta where you say, what the hell am I doing? This is painful, it's awful, it's ruining my life. So I want to put it into a little bit of a framework so we know what we're doing here. The way I was looking at it was sort of as 3 concentric circles. Oops, I want to say something else first. I want to talk about why it's awakening heart instead of awakened heart, because if you look up bodhicitta, you see that it's often called awakened heart, as if it's a done deal, once you get there. But we don't use that, as you've probably noticed in this lineage. We use the awakening. And part of that is because the process is so somatic. We know it from within. We know the process, and we know what a profound and sort of continuous process it is as we go through our lives doing this work and allowing and assisting our hearts to open. What's happening, Jonathan? I feel you creeping up. Thank you. So the first point of why we call it's awakening is that it's so very somatic, as we'll be seeing in the next few weeks and have seen a little bit already. And the second reason we call it awakening is because it isn't done. It doesn't get done. It's not like we do all this work and we're awakened, hallelujah, we're there. It's always, if we think back to the 1,000-petaled lotus that we use as a visualization for much of our bodhicitta practice, for those of you who've done it before, it's just constantly sort of opening and unfurling and becoming larger and becoming more able to be in the world. So that's why, we talk about it as awakening. And then to go back to talking about the path, and I think I said that I'm looking at it right now as sort of 3 concentric circles. And the outer circle is sort of like looking at the earth. It's the whole surface of the earth. And what I mean by that is it's teachings that are really without limit. They're for everybody, in every situation, all the time. And they're very, very accessible, and they're practical, and they're very real. And it's like the 10 points practice we were doing last week. They're powerful, but they're very, very accessible, I guess is the word for it. So it's like the surface of the earth is kind of an enchanted forest in a way. And there's a forest like this in Crestone, because this is what I see when I think of it. It's the trail that goes up to the South Crestone Lake, if you've ever seen it. And the first time I saw it, it really did look like the enchanted forest of a fairy tale, with sort of that filtered light and the moss and tons of flowers and fairy tale toadstools and all the things that make a forest sort of enchanted in our minds. And if we think about fairy tales or folk tales, enchanted forests are places of refuge often, places of comfort where you can find solace, where you can rest, where you can be protected. But they also can be places of adventure, and they can also be pretty threatening, if we think about Red Riding Hood and, some of those fairy tales. And the reason I think that they're threatening is because they represent places of liminality and transformation, and liminal. Liminal spaces are these spaces that are thresholds. We're on a threshold from the old ways, which in this case are probably like our old identities and our personalities, the structures we've built, to keep ourselves okay in our lives. And then whatever's on the other side of that threshold, a different person. So at this level, the practices are very, very transformative. And I would call all of the work we do with meditating with the body, if you're familiar with that, or your breathing body, all the things that we call the ground jhana. And there are many, many practices. And there are practices of connection, connection with our bodies like we did last week. There are practices of opening. There are practices of touching, the vastness of who we are. There's a lot here. And there's certainly not a first step or a preliminary. And if we decided, for example, to just do the practice we did last week for the rest of our lives, just 10 points in that bodhicitta style every day for the rest of our lives, it would be tremendously, tremendously transformative. And we could make a very deep journey of connection with ourselves and with the world. But the question is, why do we want to go further then? Why do we need to? Well, one thing is we don't. We can do that, we can work with this sort of enchanted forest level of the path forever if we want to. But the next step, if we want to take it, is what we're doing here and what we'll be doing for the next few weeks. And this one I sort of think of as a ring of fire. And this is, Reggie and I have been talking about this, sort of laughing about how it is to be in this ring of fire. And actually Johnny Cash says it well. And I forget how it goes. Does anyone know? Down, down, down. burns in this ring of fire. I'm going down, 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 and the flames get higher. I think that's it. Anyway, it's kind of like that. And so what is the ring of fire? The ring of fire is what we actually have to go through to cross the other threshold, which we'll get to in a minute. And what we have to go through is working with all the stuff that gets in the way of meeting our lives more directly and of actually loving ourselves and loving others. All the ego constructs, all the neurotic emotions, destructive emotions, all the difficult relationships, all those things that kind of keep us from the total freedom that we talked a little bit about last week. So that's what we're doing in the Ring of Fire, as we go through it. And some of it is quite intense and pretty amazingly painful, as well as awe-inspiring and opening and freeing. So I'm going to come back to that, once we start doing this practice. But I want to talk about the innermost ring, sort of the secret ring. And the question arises, of course, when you're in the midst of this ring of fire, why? What's on the other side? It's got to be pretty good to keep going at times. And I think what is on the other side, and we know this because we've experienced it in our practice, is one way of saying it is the clear circle of brightness. Freedom. No mind. That's really what's on the other side. And all through our practice, we've caught glimpses of this, and that's what keeps us going, and that's what tends to motivate us. And the glimpses of this space, and no mind, can be sometimes blindingly sort of life-changing in an instant. And then sometimes it's a little more occluded, like through a glass darkly, but at least we have an inkling of what it's like to be on that other side. So that's what keeps us going. And I think that, the 11th century Chan master Hongzhi, which, if you've been following Dharma Ocean for a while, you've been hearing about him a lot lately. He's become a favorite in terms of describing what the path is like in the most beautiful poetic terms. So I actually want to read to you his description of this clear circle of brightness. So it's so beautiful. The field of boundless emptiness is what exists from the very beginning. You must purify, cure, grind down, brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. Then you can reside in the clear circle of brightness. The deep source, transparent down to the bottom, can radiantly shine and can respond unencumbered to each speck of dust without becoming its partner. So that's the innermost ring. And that's what we'll be working a little bit with later in this course. So now let's start our practice. And our practice is going to have two parts. In the first part, we'll be working with the earth, as we're accustomed to doing. We'll be working with the earth to connect with and become imbued with certain of its qualities. so that we can hold those qualities, and they form the foundation for when we start really practicing Maitri. And the qualities that we're going to work with, and of course I'll be leading you through them, are first the quality of holding still and holding in spaciousness, the spacious, open, limitless quality that we know is in the earth. And then second, we'll be working with the, holding firm quality of the earth, the steadfastness, the rootedness, the groundedness that we need. And then thirdly, we'll be working with the caring, holding and tending to and caring quality of the earth, a more maternal side of the earth's energy. So we'll work with each of those in turn and allow our bodies to become the earth in those ways before we're ready to take another step and go forward. So we'll do most of this practice lying down. So let's get ready and get in our usual lying down posture. No, I don't need one.
This is okay.
Yeah. So we're lying down diagonally on our cushions so that our tailbone and our head can rest on the cushion. Our legs are up, knees together, feet a comfortable width apart. A yoga strap can be tied above the knees to take pressure off of the psoas. And the hands are resting softly over the lower belly. And we can just check our position once we get a little bit settled to see that our spine is straight and our neck is comfortable. Eyes closed. Because again, we want to be very, very inward in this practice. And first, we'll do a couple of sets of 12-fold breathing in order to sort of remove the sludge of the day and prepare our bodies. So we'll start with the first set, and we take a medium to full in-breath to fill our whole pelvic cavity with breath, letting it push out like a balloon. And then we take a long, full, extremely full out breath, allowing all of the breath to leave the body. And our lower belly flattens at this point and may even become slightly concave with the effort of expelling all the air. So let's do 12 of these quite gradually and in your own time. And again, we're taking a medium to full in-breath, very much following your own body and following how far and how deep you want to go. We're still warming up, so we shouldn't push it too hard. Medium to full in-breath, filling up the entire area of the lower belly. And then a very slow, long, full out-breath, expelling every bit of the stale prana within our systems. So let's continue on to 12 and then lie quietly. So at the end of this set, let's just lie quietly. Connecting with our bodies. Coming into presence with ourselves. And then we'll do another set. And this time, since we're slightly warmer, we can push it a little bit more if we'd like. So on the in-breath, which is medium to full, we can roll our pelvis very slightly forward to allow more breath in. So our lumbar area and sacrum lift off our cushion just a little to provide more room for the prana. And then on the out breath, we flatten our lower back and we push it into our cushion so that we're able to use a little more force in expelling all of the stale prana, so that every speck of it leaves the body and we can be refilled, renewed with the breath of life. So let's start our second set. Again, it's a set of 12, and we do this in our own time. And again, at the end of this set, we can just lie here feeling our pathways of energy, feeling the life in them, feeling them open. These channels within us, or nadis, run all the way through the body. There's some 72,000 of them, it's said. So right now we can visualize all of our nadis slightly inflating, opening with the breath. So we're getting just a little bigger, just a little more open, a little more energized and fluid. And we can tap into the energy as it moves through us, quivering, even tingling. So now let's connect with the earth underneath us, not worrying about all the things between us and the earth, feeling the energetic earth. And then we'll just begin to open the entire back of our body. It's as if the back of the body dissolves and we open to the earth underneath us. And we let our awareness just drop down into the space of the earth. It just descends, perhaps like a snowflake. Perhaps it's more dispersed like a mist. And maybe it's even a bit more contained, like an orb or a ball. Just however our awareness presents itself, let's just go with it and allow it to fall, float, descend into the earth. And we're feeling right now how open the earth is, how spacious, how deep, and without limits. So let's take a few breaths connecting with this part of the earth. Allowing our awareness to continue descending with each out-breath. So on the in-breath, we're just resting in the vast open space of the earth. And on the out-breath, we're descending more and more. There's a sense that the earth can hold everything, everything that we are. It doesn't reject anything. It's capacious. It makes room. And now we can let our awareness even expand outwards. Are there any limits? And we can just be in this beautiful open space that is the earth. And now let's let our awareness shift ever so slightly to feel the strength of the earth, its stability. Its steadfastness. It's like a mountain, or we're like a mountain, and storms can rage and roil, but the earth is immovable, imperturbable, just there. So let's breathe this sense of rootedness and of groundedness into our bodies. So it's very spacious and at the same time very strong. So with each breath, we are permeated by this sense of stability. It's not rigid, it's not hard. But it's strong, unshakable. And now let's go a little deeper with our awareness, allowing it to drift down, float down, plummet down, deeper and deeper. And as we go deeper, we can begin to sense the warmth that is the earth. The warmth, the tenderness. Most cultures have a sense of Mother Earth, the giver and sustainer of life. So that's what we're tapping into right now. And we can feel it by bringing warmth up from the earth into our bodies, up from the deepest depths of the earth. We might not even have a sense of our body right now, but we feel the warmth. We feel the nourishing, caring, nurturing qualities, the maternal qualities. And we know the earth can heal us. So let's let this healing energy just fill us, suffuse our entire body, resting here deep within the earth. So we'll take a few minutes here, resting deep, deep, deep within the earth and feeling all the qualities that we've been exploring. The boundless space, the strength, and the loving nature of the earth's energy. The earth's loving kindness toward us. Now let's very slowly and gradually bring ourselves back to our seated position, trying to keep our awareness within the earth and to keep the connection we feel with the earth. So we're sitting as the earth right now. With a gently rising spine and a head that's reaching for the sky gently. Our chin is down so that the back of our neck's open. Our ears are over our shoulders. Eyes are downcast with a very soft gaze. And again, let's connect with the earth. It's as if the entire bottom of our body is open. We're hollow. We have no base. So it's the same as we were doing when we were lying down. Except that this time the bottom of our body opens. And we bring up the earth's energy again from deep, deep within. Our awareness is still very, very deep within the earth. And we're bringing the loving kindness of the earth into our bodies so that it's filling our body, permeating every cell. And now, keeping our awareness deep, deep within the earth, I want to bring a little bit of focus to our heart area. And we're breathing the earth's energy right into our heart area from the inside. So it's filling the entire area of our chest, our heart, and everything around it. And again, feeling each of the qualities that we've been working with. First, the open space that our hearts actually can open. Even if it's just a little. And then we begin to sense the strong, stable, steadfast nature of our hearts. And this in our hearts is actually equanimity. We can actually be here and hold everything that is, hold our experience. And now we can tap into the tenderness, the love of our hearts. So let's just sit here continuing to breathe into our hearts while we talk a little bit about Maitri before we do the next section of this practice. So Hongzhou says, purify, cure, grind down, brush away all the tendencies you have fabricated into apparent habits. A rather intense way of putting it, but I think he's talking about cultivating Maitri. And the first step in developing or finding, discovering, I should say, a heart that awakens is a gentleness and a real acceptance of who we are. And we know that from our practice, we know that the foundation of love is an upwelling of the life force itself, which we know in our bodies. And that life force, as it wells up, there's a natural longing to connect it with others, to extend it to other people. But we have to do that with ourselves. We can't really skip over the others inside of us. We have to make room for them first. And we need to really be able to accommodate them, not just tolerate them. And to accept them, forgive them, appreciate them, even love them, so that they're no longer other, but they become seen and known and welcomed parts of ourselves. This is sometimes difficult, but it is the training ground, of being able to work with others. So, we all have lots of things that we consider ugly bits, and really very unlovable parts, things that are really very, very threatening to us. And some of these places are so dark that we actually sort of keep them out of sight. They're not very conscious. And others of these places are actually so light that they really scare us a lot. And we don't want to relate to them either. But this is what we have to do. We have to do this because they get in the way. They get in the way of our freedom, but they get in the way of us truly being able to see and love other people. And getting in the way of our freedom, they keep us from that clear circle of brightness, which is really the only place we long to be. And we long to actually rest in that place and live from that place and love other people from that place. So that's why we really have to work with these prisoners of ours. And let's look for a minute at what's a prisoner. What do they actually look like? We learn, if we study Buddhism, we learn that there are two sort of levels of obstacles within ourselves. One level are they're called afflictions, or they're things that bring us pain. And most of these are somewhat conscious, they're emotions generally. They could be judgmental mental attitudes, but many of them are destructive emotions. And, they're pretty recognizable to us. Anger, neediness, ignorance, pride, jealousy. There's lots of them. And they're considered poisons. And they're what's called a first veil. And veil, of course, is something that gets between us and the true nature of reality. And these first veils that we all have are, they're rather thin. They're filmy, they're sheer. We see them when they're happening. We don't necessarily know what to do all the time with them, but we know them. And then there's a second veil, another veil. And this one is a lot thicker because they're unconscious, or largely unconscious. And in Sanskrit, the second veil is called Jinyeha Avarna. Jinyeha is that which is to be experienced, and Avarna is something that's concealed, an obscuration. So there are things to be experienced, but we can't experience them because they're concealed. They are our unconscious assumptions. They're the ways that we look at the world, and often we're not even very aware of them. They're what Jung actually called complexes. And we develop them, and I think we all know this, but, as very, very young children, we are often in very threatening situations, and situations that either are or seem like a true threat to our survival. And so we develop protections. We develop ways of compensating. We develop an ego structure to stay okay. And we lose whole areas of awareness. Our self-awareness in areas just, diminishes. We don't have it any longer because it's unsafe. It's unsafe to feel some of the things we felt as a very young child. So we have these prisoners that are tucked away. And it's time to help them come into the light. And therapy does this too in various ways, but working so directly with our bodies is a very, very direct and also generally very safe way of working with our prisoners. So we're going to do this in a minute. If you're not too sure what a prisoner is or looks like, you can think of some of these common complexes that we hear about: the savior, the caretaker, the fixer, and we all probably have some twist on those few, some unique way that they interact with us in our lives. So we're going to sit here as the earth. We don't want to lose touch with the earth. And we're going to invite one of our prisoners to emerge. And we want to do this very, very gently and without any forcing whatsoever. We really have to work with our bodies. It's very helpful if these prisoners sort of personify themselves. Because then they can sort of resonate in our body. If we're doing too much with our mind, the body won't cooperate and it won't really give us anything to work with. But if we maintain a real openness and curiosity and gently invite a prisoner to appear, they might be willing. So let's try this. So we're sitting here again as the earth, breathing into our hearts. And throughout this practice, if we either get sort of stirred up, if something very strong comes up, just come back to our hearts and breathe into our hearts. And again, if nothing happens, no problem. We just continue breathing into our hearts. So let's do that, breathing into our hearts for a few breaths here. Now let's invite something, someone to show up from our depths, from the dungeons within us. And they can come up right up in front of us so that we can actually see them. They might be a little bit shy in an environment like this, so we can just continue breathing into our hearts. making room for whatever needs to happen. One way we can connect with a prisoner sometimes is through an emotion. So if no one's coming up but we're feeling some kind of emotion, we can tap into that and really breathe, become that emotion, curious about it. So there's often a prisoner underneath, stirring. And our prisoner could arise through an image, a bodily sensation, a memory, a sound, many different ways. And if we have someone, we hold them in front of us. And at this point, we're just looking, we're seeing with an attitude of interest. Who are they? How do they work? How do they operate in our lives? If we're not seeing much, no problem. Just be whatever is there. I'm trying to keep about 50% of our awareness in our heart and 50% on the prisoner. And maybe they're no longer a prisoner now that they're out. we can bring in some appreciation to this person for showing themselves to us. Even some affection, if we can find it, for this prisoner. These parts of ourselves have so much to teach us. And they often hold our greatest gifts. So now let's express some appreciation, some gratitude to this part of ourself for showing itself, for allowing us to see it, to understand it, to meet it, and begin to make a relationship. And we can let it dissolve. Any visualization, we can just let it dissolve and come back fully into our hearts, bringing up the earth energy into our hearts as we've been doing, sitting as the earth. That was wonderful. And just before we take a break, I'd like to thank the live stream audience for joining us tonight, and say that I'm sorry that we weren't able to answer questions from the live stream audience. We just couldn't figure out how to make it work smoothly. But if you do have questions, you can either send them in to Reggie next week, as he'll go back to his Thursday live stream, or you can email me directly. So I'll bow to say goodnight to the live stream audience.